Good evening or good morning, depending on where you are. Pelicans Daily, once again presented by Fan Arts. I am your host, Dylan Bruton. First off, just want to give another shout out. Major hats to y'all. Smell the roses while you can. Appreciate the love and support so much. Y'all have been, coming through with the great basketball takes, with the great responses to the stuff that I've talked about. And I love reading and just seeing, the interaction and the dialogue. I really do. So hats off to y'all. Much love. These playoffs are getting kind of crazy. You know what I'm saying? What the hell is going on with the Knicks, man? Why are the Pacers? Why are the Pacers still living rent free in the Knicks' head all these years later? What's going on, MSG? And then, hey, shout out to the Timberwolves bouncing back in a major way. In a major way. You know what I'm saying? That was a domination. So yeah, this playoffs is crazy. But let's get back to our team. Cause you know what? We gonna be in the playoffs again. Don't worry. We was in the playoffs in 20. We was in the playoffs last year. We gonna get back. We gonna get back. Well, let's start off by talking about Mr. CJ McCollum. Oh, CJ. The 2016 Most Improved Player. I remember that year. And as a Duke fan, I remember Mr. McCollum in 2013. That was a bad man. We had no answer for him at all. And him and Lehigh upset us. Woo! I was hot. Yo, I, that was a moment where, what would the kids say, crash out? Oh yeah. I was ready. I was tight, yo. CJ McCollum, you know what I'm saying, has been a mainstay for the team for the last 4 seasons, ever since he came over in a trade, over the trade. And, probably been one of our most consistent players that we have. You know what I'm saying? Has played in 80% of the games, averaged 21, 5, and 4 on 45% from the field, 75% from the free throw line, and like exactly nearly 40% from three in 4 seasons with us. Last year he averaged 21, nearly 4 boards, 4 assists, 44% shooting from the field, 37 from the 3 point line, and 72 nearly from the free throw line. And the questions have been asked: where does CJ fit in this next move for us, right? In this next transition. He's 33 years old. He still has, plenty of time left to play given his play style, but he is coming off an injury and he is older. And we are a young team that is looking to capitalize off our youth movement and see where that goes and see how that progresses. On Pelicans Debrief, Chris Lambert said it's time for us to pull the plug on the CJ McCollum era. And, I understand. I definitely understand. You know what I'm saying? There's been good and there's been bad. You know what I'm saying? He averaged 22 a game, nearly 7 boards and 5 assists. The efficiency was a lot to be desired. But that 30-point game he had, hey, I remember that. Because he only shot 39% from the field, 33 from three, and 69 from the free throw line in the 22 playoffs. But I came back in the 24 playoffs, took a little bit of a backseat, wasn't able to generate as much of a scoring punch as we thought. But his efficiency went up. He averaged nearly 18 a game, 5 boards, 5 assists. Did average nearly 2 steals a game, though. He was very active on the defensive end. 42% from the field, 24% from three. That's not going it. That's not going to cut it. But he did shoot, didn't miss any free throws. Went 100% from the line. And yeah, as far as trade chips, obviously you see on the ballot, we all roads lead to Zion. There's no one who's seen as more of a trade chip and piece than Zion. But I'd say right after is CJ, just given the pedigree, right? He's been a 20-point scorer since 2016, so going on nearly a decade, and he still shoots at a very efficient clip. He's able to play on and off the ball. You know what I'm saying? He has a game that ages well, you know what I'm saying? And there's a reason why he's still playing at a high level. I mean, last year we went 3-1 in games where he scored 40 or more. He had 50 against the Wizards. That was a crazy game. On the third, in a victory, he had 45 versus Utah. On the 20th, that was another win. He had 43 versus Sacramento. On the 13th of February, day before Valentine's Day. That's a good way to go. And then he had 40 versus the Pistons in the same infamous game that he got hurt. And one of the wildest and some wildness that ensued after. But that was on the 23rd of March, and that was unfortunately an L. And the article said, just given his age, given the uncertainty of the team, and then given his value and striking while the iron is hot, he would be somebody that would likely be on the move. Now, I'm not disputing or denying that. They're not, Chris is not wrong, not wrong. Now, the trade idea that he floated around, this was interesting to me. And I just mentioned the team that he last scored 40 against, which was those Detroit Pistons, and that was right before he suffered the foot injury in his right foot. But this was an interesting trade, a very interesting trade. So in the trade generator, I'm taking it back old school with the yellow one. But in the trade, they had us picking up a 2027 second round pick and a 2028 second round pick. Who knows what those turn into? But getting two very interesting players that represent both a present and maybe a future. Who knows? But for starters, number one, Tobias Harris. Now, Tobias Harris incurred a lot of slander and wrath the last couple of years in Philly. Some of it deserved, and some of it maybe there's some organizational issues here. It's not. He's just the scapegoat. Maybe, what I'm saying, the blame is being had on Tobias. This past year he averaged nearly 14 a game, 6 boards, 2 assists, nearly 48% from the field, 34.5 from 3, basically 35, and 86% from the free throw line. But he upped his play tremendously in the playoffs. I was very impressed with what I saw from Tobias in the playoffs, because in the playoffs he averaged nearly 16, nearly 8 boards, a block per game, a steal, 48% from the field, nearly 42% from the three-point line, and 100% from the free throw line. I mean, he was just sniping. That outside of Cade, I would say Tobias was, the Pistons' most consistent offensive weapon on the perimeter. And given that the Pistons struggled to score the ball a lot, especially after Jaden Ivey's season-ending injury, and prayers up to him. Hopefully he comes back healthy. But they lost 4.4 points per possession without Cade on the floor. And Cade this year was just announced to the All-NBA second team. Salute, hats off to him. Wonderful and tremendous year he had, and I think he's an incredibly special player who might have MVP potential one day. But he can't do it alone. A player of his skill set, he can do so much, but he needs other guys that can score and can score the ball on the dribble. And given that, I've talked about the Rockets multiple times as far as a team that we could look at as far as building a blueprint from. But look at the Pistons in the East, right? The Pistons have one of the greatest single-season turnarounds. Went from the worst record in the league and one of the worst records in history to the 6th seed. And, they made it very competitive for those Knicks in that first round. And the future is very bright with that team and Coach Bickerstaff at the helm. So, thinking about they're a team right now, they're trying to hit their stride. They're trying to hit their peak. A guy like CJ, he's not getting any younger. He likely wants to retire with a ring. He's got he's doing his thing as a broadcaster and as someone who graduated with a journalism degree. Hats off to any brothers out there who are in the broadcast field. He's doing his thing with that. I know he's got his podcast, and he's also he's also the player president. I know some people are a bit kind of up and down because this it is under his regime that this new CBA is going to be taken forth. So a little rough on that end, but everything else, what I'm saying, consummate family guy, just a good guy overall. Not very little issue or drama. I can't think of any issues or drama. Let me put that out there. And as a player, he would be able to step into Detroit and be a perfect spark plug. Be the Vinny Johnson on steroids. You know what I'm saying? Vinny Johnson on steroids with Chauncey and Rip Hamilton level capability, right? If you know the Pistons really, right? Interesting trade, right? And then another piece that we would get in this proposed trade, Marcus Sasser. Now, Marcus Sasser, to me, is a player that I think has a lot of potential. 6'2" guard, very quick, very athletic. Comes from a family of hoopers. You know what I'm saying? The Sasser name is very known in the Texas area. Pops, uncles, you know what I'm saying? Had a great career at SMU. The numbers don't jump off the page so far in his career. He's averaged nearly 8 a game, 1.5 boards, nearly 3 assists, 44% from the field, around 38% from 3, and 86% from the free throw line. But, when he had to step in and play a lot more minutes at the point while Cade was hurt last year. Now, granted, yes, as I mentioned, the Pistons were not winning. They were having the issues and problems. But he averaged nearly 15, 2 boards, and nearly 5 assists on 41% shooting, around 36% from 3, and 91% from the free throw line. So I think, is he a long-term starter? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But perhaps there is potential that he could uncover with us. Whether and given DeJounte's injury and given, outside of Alvarado, we don't have too many guards, but there is a guard I'm going to bring up. We don't have too many guards that can play point because we got a lot more twos than we got ones. But given his ability to score, spread the floor, be athletic, who knows? Maybe he also ends up becoming like a Vinny Johnson type of player for us, or a Jason Terry type of player. You know what I'm saying? As far as like a dynamic 6th, 7th man that can go and get a bucket, a Lou Will, even. And then the article brought up a player who I had yet to bring up, and I feel bad because I really did like his game a lot when he was at Kentucky, but Mr. Antonio Reeves. And we talk about Yves Missy and the great rookie year that he had, but we gotta give some props to Mr. Reeves. You know what I'm saying? He came off, he was picked 47th near the end of the draft, and had a very solid rookie campaign. Averaged 7, a rebound, and an assist. Now he doesn't offer much besides, spark plug scoring and shooting, but he did shoot 46% from the field, nearly 40% from 3, and 80% from the free throw line. And people forget, it was not Rob Dillingham or Reed Shepherd that was the leading scorer on that last Kentucky team. It was Antonio Reeves. And, you know what I'm saying, he averaged the most amount of points under Calipari in the Kentucky era. You know what I'm saying? And most just in general. Just most under Calipari with Kentucky. I misspoke. I was like, wait, Marcus Camby went ballistic when he was coached by him in UMass. Let me get myself right. But he averaged, he broke Jamal Murray's scoring record. And you think about the players that Coach Cal, coached. He coached guys like Anthony Davis, Brandon Knight. I know people are gonna make jokes, but Brandon Knight was a dog in college. Okay, let me not bring up Brandon Knight. Boogie Cousins, John Wall. You know what I'm saying? Like Eric Bledsoe. You know what I'm saying? Like Coach Cal has coached a lot of great players in his time. And obviously he's doing this thing now up at Arkansas, which is weird. It's very weird. I actually met Coach Cal when I was like 14, 15. He came to my high school to recruit some players. very brief, but got that waste management wise guy type energy. Cool guy though, very cool guy. But yeah, Antonio Reeves showed a lot of promise. 34, he had a big game versus the Cavs. You know what I'm saying? The Cavs were the top team in the entire Eastern Conference. You know what I'm saying? He put up 34 against them. We lost. Yeah, we lost by 28, but 34 against a team that had one of the best defenses and offenses. You know what I'm saying? That's no small feat, especially as a rookie, and especially he was on our G League team. You know what I'm saying? He really had to grind, but I feel like when called upon, he was ready. He was compared to guys like Justin Holiday and Najee Marshall, who shout out to Najee. He's doing his thing up in Dallas. Would love to still have him. But as like kind of like a Swiss Army knife scorer off the bench, energy. But honestly, in watching him and watching his movement and the way he's able to cut and the way he's able to find and pick his spots, he does kind of play like a taller CJ McCollum. And I bet you CJ was probably in his ear, giving him some good insight. Tall like a taller Lou Will. You know what I'm saying? So who knows what his ceiling is? So the article was just saying that, with players like Antonio Reeves, players like Jordan Hawkins. I said it out loud. Oh my gosh. Voldemort, he who shall not be named. With players like Jordan Hawkins, with players like Brandon Boston, right? We've got a lot of young wings in the wing waiting. Say that 5 times fast. And right now, CJ McCollum is kind of in the way. Not really, but kind of. Just because he's got the pedigree of being a 20-plus point scorer, well-respected veteran. But, hey, you got to strike when the iron is hot. His trade value is still, I feel like he still has trade value. So I would be sad for us to get rid of CJ because I feel like, you know what I'm saying, while dealing with Zion's injuries and while dealing with Brandon Ingram's injuries, I feel like CJ was a constant presence for us as both an on-court leader, a locker room guy, and as a point two that can score and get his shot and play on and off and play off ball as well. So I don't know, but y'all let me know, because I've seen some people in the comments like, get rid of him, trade him now. I actually saw that quite a bit in the last video. But then I've seen in some of the other videos, y'all been like, no, like, keep CJ around. You know what I'm saying? And I think people sometimes underestimate and underrate the value of having certain veterans. I brought up Fred VanVleet in Houston, right? Around all those young guys that they got, with Sengun, Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, Jabari Smith Jr., Reed Shepard, who I brought up briefly. It helps having a guy like Fred VanVleet, well-respected veteran, a guy who also had to kind of claw and grind his way up, playing at a mid-major. He was at Wichita State. CJ was at Lehigh. And, he carved out a great career for himself. You know what I'm saying? So salute to him. But and he won a title with the Raptors in 2019. CJ never sniffed that level of success. He had the misfortune of having to play against the Warriors when they were at their apex, when it was him and Dame. But, again, I do believe that he has and provides a lot of valuable insight. But we've been talking about CJ McCollum long enough, so let's move on. But does he get moved? That will remain to be seen. We'll see what President Dumars ends up doing. Now, again, hey, Kristaps Porzingis. There must be something in the water, either up in Boston or down in New Orleans, that has got Kristaps Porzingis' name floating around in trade rumors with us. Now, the last time I talked about Kristaps, it was in a trade with Zion. And my reaction was, no, absolutely not. I would not give up Zion in general, and definitely not for no Kristaps Porzingis. That's crazy. That's crazy talk. You know what I'm saying? Like this ain't 2015 through 2018 Kristaps. And even then, I still wouldn't. I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? And I know, like, him being like that unicorn, 7'3", handle, shot, athleticism, yada, yada. And that's what's led to guys like, Chet and Victor Wembanyama being highly sought after. I know that there still is that like tantalizingness, right? But I feel like KP, he's had a good career, but he's like a super evolved Andre Bargnani to me. I don't think we're ever gonna see him reach that, that level of being a franchise player. He had opportunity. That's just not what it is. But he was a valuable member of that Celtics team that won last year in the finals. He had that big game in game 1 off the bench. This past year, he averaged, 19 and a half a game, 7 boards, 1.5 blocks, 48% from the field, 41% from the three. Them Celtics love shooting the threes. And 81% from the free throw line. And, he can still play at a high level, but he was unable to this past playoffs due to his illness and ailment, and then the previous playoffs was injury. So it's like the injury concerns are tough. Now, the only reason why they were pushing, and this was through Sports Illustrated, this was Logan Struck who wrote this article. The reason why they were pushing so hard about KP was the Celtics have basically informally came out and said, Jason Tatum not being moved. Jaylen Brown not being moved. And I've talked about Jaylen Brown a couple of times, just like I've talked about Kristaps a couple of times, but we can kiss the dream of Jaylen Brown goodbye. Kiss the game goodbye. Shout out to Jadakiss. But that's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. But KP, Drew, and potentially Derek White, which I found very interesting. I don't get that one. I think it more so has to do with the contract stuff, but I don't see like logically on a basketball side of things how you would want to get rid of a Derek White if you're Boston, especially knowing the type of season looming ahead that you're probably going to have without Jason Tatum. But hey, they're trying to figure things out, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so in this trade it was for 2 players each. So we would get Kristaps and we would get Peyton Pritchard. Now Peyton Pritchard, PP, dog right there. 6th man of the year this past year. Averaged 14 a game, nearly 4 boards and 4 assists. Crazy efficient shooting numbers. 47% from the field, nearly 41% from the 3-point line, and around 85% from the free throw line. Playoff-wise, his numbers slightly dropped a little bit, but not too much. You know what I'm saying? Averaged like 12, 2, and 1.5 assists, 46% shooting, 40% from the 3-point line, 8% from the free throw line. Those numbers slightly dropped, but that's not too bad of a tail off. And honestly, if you watched the games, he was one of the more consistent performers for the Celtics because honestly, with the talent that they had on their team, they underperformed for where they should have gone. I mean, that team should be in the Eastern Conference Finals. They should be competing for a finals. They should be going back to back. But hey, they couldn't capitalize on the opportunity, and they beat themselves in their own game. And the 3-point shooting, all that, you're not Golden State. You know what I'm saying? There's only one Golden State. And even right after a while, that 2019 Raptors team figured them out. Even the 2016 Cavs figured them out, right? So the 3-point shooting boom and revolution, I get it's still all the rage, but it does not guarantee anything. It does not guarantee anything. But we would get them too. Now, I don't want to give up one of the players that they're talking about, but we'd have to give up Herb Jones, and I don't want to do that, man. I don't want to give up Zion, and I damn sure do not want to give up Herb. I do not want to give up Herb, man. Mr. Herbert, Mr. Jones, that's my guy, man. One of the best defenders in the league. And I got a shout out to the original Don Gilroy. I apologize if I butchered your last name, my man. But he said, we need to see the duo of Herb and DeJounte together. And I agree. I agree, right? Because DeJounte only played in 31 games last year. Herb only played in 20. 51 games is not enough to get a scope of their talent on the defensive end, right? That's like having a great strong safety and a great free safety. If only the Saints could relate to that. Oh, right. That was like the team. You know what I'm saying? That was like okay, you know what? I'm gonna just leave it there. Just he kind of he who shall not be named. But Roman Harper, was a big big leader in that secondary back in the day. If you was watching Saints football on that Super Bowl team in '09. But it's equivalent to that though. It's equivalent to having an incredibly talented defensive backfield that is not going a defensive secondary that's not letting anybody out or in. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like we need to see them in full action and full force before we just pull the plug. You know what I'm saying? We haven't even given it a go. We haven't even given an opportunity. The other player that they talked about us trading would be Kelly Olynyk, which, no diss to Kelly. He came and he played well as a three-point shooting big off the bench. He, averaged 7-8 a game, shot well from three. But, he's expendable. He's expendable. Let's keep it real. But, no shame or diss to him. Respected veteran, respected stretch big, but yeah, we can get better. This trade idea, other than if we can find a way to get them to get Porzingis and Pritchard without giving up Herb, we might have something. We might have to we might have to give up CJ and Kelly, for that. That might be a possibility, you know what I'm saying? But I'm in the impression of do not give up Herb. Do not. Because I still feel like he has the ability to be the super glue guy. Again, like a Tayshaun Prince, a James Posey. Those guys were integral pieces to championship rosters, right? James Posey with the 06 Heat, the 08 Celtics, Tayshaun Prince with the 04 Pistons. I mean, they almost won in 05. They lost in 7 to the Spurs, and they should have made the finals in 06 if you was watching ball. But, D. Wade had other plans. But that Pistons team won like 64, 65 games. So, I mean, hey, and Tayshaun was a big reason why. And I feel like Herb has that type of potential, has that type of ability to make that type of impact. So it's way too soon to be pulling the plug, especially for a player who came in with not much, expectation of becoming, a key piece and a mainstay, but he is definitely, become, a big part of the franchise. He's become a big part of, a very beloved player within the fan base. You know what I'm saying? If you go right now on the Pelicans Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, you name it, you are going to see nothing but glowing reviews and comments about Mr. Herb Jones. And not saying that social media or the internet is the best indicator of anything or of how, fans feel about certain players, but it's a space and community where fans can talk about the team. And Herb is very much beloved. In fact, I see more positive stuff about Herb than I do with Zion. So yeah. So, but okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, and I'm just thinking now, dang, with Kentucky, why don't I think of guys like De'Aaron Fox and Bam Adebayo? And yeah, okay. All right, so back to this potential trade. I do feel like Pritchard would fit well though, right? To get off to move off from Herb, to move off of KP. I do feel like Pritchard would fit very well. You know what I'm saying? Now, granted, him and Alvarado might kind of contrast because in a way, like Pritchard's like a souped up version of Alvarado offensively. Obviously, Alvarado is a menace out there defensively. But Pritchard has the bag. You know what I'm saying? He's got that full scoring arsenal, especially for a guard at his size. I mean, he makes layups, and I'm like, how'd he make that? Like, there's no way. You know what I'm saying? But 6'2" in the NBA versus 6'2" in regular real life is very different. But I feel like with DeJounte's injury, with CJ, it's unsure of if he's going to be moved, and also how well he's going to come back to play. Pritchard's only 27, so it would not be the worst idea to get a player like him. He's got championship pedigree. He's got playoff experience. He hits big shots. He can score from every part of the court. And I think that, playing next to a Zion would definitely help him develop as like a pure point. Playing next to a Trey Murphy, you know what I'm saying? He already has played with talented wings like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So it wouldn't be the worst, but I just don't want us to give up Herb. If we can get those two players without giving up Herb, okay, that might be a real move. But I mentioned Tayshaun Prince, and Tayshaun Prince was drafted by none other than our president, Mr. Joe Dumars. And today was his birthday. Happy birthday to Joe Dumars, 62 years old, a true legend, a true Louisiana legend, you know what I'm saying? From Shreveport. And I do apologize if I butcher this. I know, maybe someone in the comments might be an alum, but Natchitoches Central, and then he went to McNeese. I mean, you don't get more Louisiana than that. The man stayed as loyal to the state of Louisiana as possible. And, Joe Dumars had a great career in the NBA. One of the most, when we talk about like two-way players, one of the best two-way players of all time. Despite only being 6'3", you know what I'm saying, was a 4-time all-defensive first-teamer, 2-time NBA champion, won Finals MVP in '89, averaged 27 a game against the Lakers when they still had Magic, Worthy, Byron Scott, 6-time All-Star. Him and Isaiah Thomas, that's one of the best backcourt duos, you know what I'm saying? Now, Joe Dumars was the nicest one of the bad boy Pistons, but make no mistake, he was one of the best defensive guards ever. Michael Jordan himself said that Joe Dumars was the best defender that he faced in the NBA, that nobody defended him better. I mean, if Jordan is saying that, hey, that's got to mean something. And obviously, and then Joe Dumars was able to parlay, a very successful career a Hall of Fame career in the NBA, was able to parlay that into a very successful career with the Pistons as their president. Now, outside of drafting Darko over Melo and Chris Bosh, Andy Wade, and even a guy like Mo Williams or Kyle Korver or Leandro Barbosa, he enjoyed a lot of success with those Pistons. He came in, they went 32-50 their first year. And then after that, from 03 to 08, they made 6 straight Eastern Conference Finals. He won executive in 2003. They won 50 games first in 01-02. And then, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals for 6 straight seasons. In his 14 years there, he had a 595 and 536 record, which, equals out to nearly 53%, win record, 73 playoff wins, 6 Central Division titles, 2 Eastern Conference champions. I mentioned 04, the year they won, beat the Lakers, effectively ending the Kobe and Shaq era. And then 2005, going back, nearly beat the Spurs. You know what I'm saying? If it wasn't for Big Shot Bob, they win that finals pretty much. And you know what I'm saying? Now he is team president, stepping in for David Griffin. And he was last the executive VP, head of basketball operations of the entire league. Not of a team, but the entire league for the last 3 seasons of the NBA. So that just goes to show the type of pedigree and respect that Joe Dumars possesses and carries. Now, Year one, what are we expecting? Year one, what do we think is going to happen? He already made a very bold statement by, you know, sending Zion to the draft lottery to represent us, and also making it publicly be known we ain't moving him. We want to build around him. You know what I'm saying? And I given the resume, like I just listed off all of the different, all of the different things that he accomplished as a player and as an exec. I'm willing to let the man cook. I'm willing to let the man do his job. You know what I'm saying? Now, if things are, if certain things, like if we we pick a Darko, right? Then okay, that makes things a little differently, right? And not to say, there was definitely some weaker years with the Pistons. As I mentioned, they didn't have that same playoff success after 2008. They were kind of middling and struggling. They did draft Brandon Knight. He unfortunately didn't turn into a franchise star. But, that's, when you have a win, you have an above 50% win percentage, 6 Eastern Conference finals under your belt, 6 division titles under your belt, 2 Eastern Conference championships under your belt, and an NBA title. I mean, that type of success, that type of winning pedigree, not to mention 2 NBA titles as the second or first best, depending on how you looked at it, player of the team. That type of winning pedigree and culture we need in New Orleans, right? We have 1 division title. One! And that was in 2008. Shout out to that team, right? But that was when we were the New Orleans Hornets. We don't have a division title as the Pelicans. That's got to change. Chris Paul is not walking through that door. Although I did see someone bring up CP3. That might be a video top. Stay tuned. But Chris Paul is not walking through that door. Peja is not walking through that door. David West is not walking through that door. Who else was on that team? James Posey was James Posey. Oh no, never mind. James Posey was on the team after. That's right. I got my years mixed up. He was on the team right after that lost to Dallas in the playoffs. But yeah, at this current juncture, right, we need a reset, and we need it with someone who knows what it takes to win and knows what it takes to build a culture of winning. So that's why I say I'm willing to trust the process, trust the vision of President Dumars. I have faith. Now, if things start to look bad, then okay, different conversation, different type of dialogue. But the man's track record speaks for itself, right? He was able to turn a guy like Ben Wallace, that was an undrafted player, that was practically a foot out the NBA, turn him into one of the greatest defensive centers of all time, a Hall of Fame player. Now, drafted Tayshaun Prince, one of the best defensive, point forward type of wings in the league for a very long time. Played in the NBA for a very long time. Retired literally a few years ago, right? He was able to draft a player like him. Signed, I think they traded for. I might be wrong. They either traded or signed. But Chauncey Billups was seen as a draft bust. You know what I'm saying? When he was in Boston, when he was in Toronto, when he was in Minnesota, he kind of picked up his play there, but they didn't give him a contract. Detroit was like, hey, we see the potential, we see the vision, brought him in, and he became Mr. Big Shot, right? He was the Finals MVP in 2004. He turned his whole career and trajectory around. Now, to me, Chauncey Billups is a Hall of Famer, and I did get to meet Chauncey. Shout out to the lockout in 2012. Great guy, and he's coaching for he's coaching for the Trailblazers now. You know what I'm saying? They brought in Rip Hamilton. You know what I'm saying, through a trade from the Wizards, and we got rid of they got rid of Jerry Stackhouse for Rip Hamilton, and you know what I'm saying, Rip Hamilton was one of the best catch and shoot scorers for a long time, one of the best mid-range shooters in his day. And also he had the iconic face mask. He's looking like MF Doom out there. But you know what I'm saying, that core, and then don't forget that they traded for Rasheed Wallace, right? Rasheed Wallace was traded to the Hawks, played one game, and then they flipped him to the Pistons. And that move in 04 because he was traded in the second part of the season, right? Now they had the Wallace brothers, even though they weren't brothers, but you had Big Ben and you had Rasheed, two very different type of bigs, but two very physical and aggressive type of bigs. And that starting five was one of the best starting five lineups in the NBA for a good bulk of the 2000s. Like I mentioned, 6 straight Eastern Conference Finals. That, yes, the East was not the West. Okay, let's get that out there. The Western Conference in the 2000s was definitely better than the Eastern Conference. That's not up for debate. But still, they were the cream of the crop team. They were the team to beat. I want us to be the team to beat, right? In our division and out west. And granted, you know, this is going to be a little, you know, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of teams that you cannot ignore. You cannot, you know, take your eye off of. Obviously, OKC right now, you know what I'm saying, they were the number one team in the entire league, not just the West, but the entire league. You know what I'm saying? Houston broke out amazingly this year. You know, the Lakers obviously still have the luster of Hollywood and them being the Lakers. LeBron still being there. Them getting Luka. No one saw that coming. Clippers still very competitive. You know what I'm saying? You can't count out a Kawhi Leonard. You can't count out James Harden. And Norman Powell had a great year. You know what I'm saying? And then the Warriors. Steph Curry is still Steph Curry. You know what I'm saying? So there's still a lot. And then Denver. You know what I'm saying? Jokic is still Jokic. Jamal Murray, you know what I'm saying? Like there's talent in Minnesota right now. Minnesota. Shout out to Ant. Ant definitely still is a face of the league type of player. So the West is very competitive, but what's to say that we can't become one of those teams? What's to say that people aren't saying, yo, we gotta watch how we go how we play when we go to Smoothie King? What's to say that teams don't start feeling fear when they step into the bayou, right? If LSU can terrorize people on the football field, why can't we do that on the basketball court? Come on. Why can't we? Why can't we? It starts up top with the leadership. It starts with the infrastructure. Who is running the show? So I'm all in. I'm all in. Now, if Dumars is doing things like drafting, I'm going to keep bringing him up, but drafting a Darko Milicic, right, type of prospect, you know what I'm saying? If we're not playing up to par for what, you know, the talent that this team, you know, potentially possesses, and he makes some questionable decisions, then okay. Yeah, then accountability and different dialogue is had. But I trust the vision. So I'm going to just say that. And I thought it was a great sign that he said he was standing behind Zion. And I guess it's a good time to bring up Zion. All roads lead to Zion, as I said last time. Now, well, should we trade Zion Part 5,000? My answer, no. Y'all know where I stand on that. And I was initially going to do this about, I initially was going to do, talk about Zion playing point. I'm going to do that for the next one. I think that y'all going to like that one. I think y'all going to like that one a lot. But this was a trade that Hoops Shelf, Hoops, I sometimes can't even read my own handwriting. Hoops shares? Yeah, I need to work on my handwriting. Jeez. But Hoops share, Trayvon Hastings put into the trade machine, Trade Finder. And this time it's with the Charlotte Hornets. Now, it's kind of a interesting, situation, right? You know what I'm saying? You have the city that once held the right to the team name, and then they moved to New Orleans, briefly OKC, you know what I'm saying, because of Katrina. And then came back, and then Charlotte became the Bobcats, and then the New Orleans went from New Orleans Hornets to the Pelicans after AD's rookie year, and the Charlotte became the Hornets again. I mean, it's kind of a weird, like, I don't want to say full circle, but it's a weird situation, and I'm sure it probably would have felt like that if you were, what I'm saying. I mean, there's no way anybody was from this time, but I'm just speaking to it just because, in my own family. But like if you were a Brooklyn, if Brooklyn got a team after they lost the Dodgers to LA, and a trade was had, because a lot of people in Brooklyn after the Dodgers left, they was like, I'm done with the Dodgers. This pinstripe pride, go Yankees. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not about to go root for the team in Queens, the Mets. No. So it's kind of a weird situation to see a trade float and circulate between the Pelicans and the Hornets. But both teams are in a position where they kind of don't fully know what they're going to do with their superstar players. Zion was the number 1 overall pick in the 2019 draft, and one of my favorite players, just, shout out to, I should have worn my hoodie. Yeah, I should have worn my hoodie, but I'll wear it another time. Big Baller Brand. But shout out to LaMelo Ball, man. That dude is incredibly fun to watch. Been a big fan of his since he was at Chino Hills. Actually, I saw him at the Fab 48 tournament when he was like, I want to say like 13, 14, and he was like 5'10", but he was at 13, 14, he was playing up with Lonzo and Jello, and he was cooking. And I'm like, how old is this kid? You know what I'm saying? He looks awfully young, and he's over there cooking. And he was the, you know what I'm saying, he was the second or third pick in the 2020 draft. You know what I'm saying? When healthy, one of the most exciting players in the league, an all-star talent, can score in so many different ways. Is he the most efficient? No, that's definitely where he has to work on it. But his game is incredibly fun to watch. You know what I'm saying? He makes incredibly fancy passes. He just has that swag and that, like, can't nobody touch me. Can't nobody guard me. Who are you? Like I like those type of players, and he plays with that type of chip. You know what I'm saying? But they don't know, given his health, given the efficiency struggles, and given the team itself, right? They're a team that just, it's like they can't figure it out. As much as people want to say that we have problems, well, let's just say the grass is not greener on the other side. At least we can get to a playoff. I mean, it's been a little rough for those Hornets, okay? It's been a little rough for them. But Mr. Hastings proposed a trade involving Zion, and y'all know I don't want us to get rid of Zion. It's way too soon. We don't even fully know how far his potential could go. But this was an interesting trade. Interesting to read about. Let me put it that way. But I want y'all to hear this. And maybe somebody in the comments can be like, nah, I like this. I don't know. Me personally, no. And if Coach Dumars, if President Dumars makes this trade, I'll give him a phone call personally and say, hey, my man, I was just singing your praises. I was just, you know what I'm saying, speaking of you super highly, but this move, this ain't it. This ain't it, OG. This ain't it. But in the trade, they discussed us getting, we would trade Zion and just him, and we would trade him for Miles Bridges and Tajane Salon. Now, with Miles Bridges, you know what I'm saying, some similarities with his game, but to Zion, but leaner, and obviously he's got more of a he's got a mid-range shot. 6'7", small forward, power forward, 27 years old, been in the league since 2018. This past year, averaged 20 a game, nearly 7.5 boards, 4 assists, 43% from the field, 31% from three, 87% from the free throw line. Those last 3 years though, because obviously we know about the domestic stuff. So he missed the season. He missed the rest of 2022, 2023 because of the domestic stuff. But the last 3 years, he's averaged nearly 20 and a half points a game, 7 boards, and nearly 4 assists per game on 46% from the field, 33% from three, and 83% from the free throw line. Had a very big game where they nearly won. It was a crap. I remember I was watching that game, but he had 46 against the Cavs. Everyone loved beating up the Cavs. The poor Cavs. I mean, the Pacers sent them home. I mean, this Cleveland, this one's for you. It's been a while. It's been a while since they heard stuff like that. Now I don't want to kick them while they down. I mean, we would love to be in the predicament with all those wins. So let me not put my foot where my mouth is. You know what I'm saying? But he put up his career high this past year. And dope rapper too, RTBMB. You know what I'm saying? You ain't heard. Hey, the brother nice on the microphone. I'm not gonna lie. He might get a little too enthralled and intrigued about trying to collab with like YoungBoy or something like that. So maybe that might be a slight concern. But Miles Bridges is a very exciting player, right? Great dunker. Plays also with that, that chip on his shoulder. You know what I'm saying? Detroit, they built a little different over there. But given his controversy and just, I don't feel like he's a player on Zion's caliber. I'm not with this trade. I'm just not. I feel like there's more to lose than there is to gain in this vicinity. Plus, you know what I'm saying? We know Trey, we know Trey Murphy is our guy. Right, we know he's established at that small forward position, and I feel like his place, I feel like he and, excuse me, oh my gosh, sorry y'all. I feel like him and Miles' play styles would conflict a little too much. You know what I'm saying? And is Miles Bridges talented? Yes, but again, there's just a slight risk reward. Now I actually know some people who work with the Hornets, and they've encountered him and said he's a cool guy. But controversial stuff. When you're trying to build a winning culture, you're trying to build a team that is solid as a rock, that has that foundation. It's not the best recipe for success, right? There's certain controversial things that you can kind of go, okay, but his situation's a little bit like, ugh. I don't know about that. And if people have issues with Zion's personal life, you might not want to hear this man rap. He's nice though, but you might not want to hear him rap because you might be like, wait a minute, what kind of energy is he gonna bring to the locker room, to the city? This is a powder keg. Now, Tajay Salon, as a player, I don't see what the Hornets saw. You know what I'm saying? He had a very just underwhelming rookie year. Averaged 6 a game, almost 5 boards, an assist, 33% from the field, 28% from three, 71% from the free throw line. But he 6'9", 210, can handle the ball, can space the floor. So he kind of got drafted off of what could be and potential, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of players do get drafted off potential. But I mean, he didn't even crack 20 points. You know what I'm saying? And he had a good amount of opportunity out there, given LaMelo's injuries and just given the dysfunction of the team. He had opportunity to put up bigger numbers. I don't know. And if you go look at the Hornets Reddit, oh man, they don't like the young man. Now I hope he can turn it around. You know what I'm saying? I know there's like a boom of like French players, especially since Wemby. But I don't know. I don't see anything particularly too special, right? And even looking at the guys he's been compared to, right? On DraftNet they compared him to Sam Perkins. Shout out to Big Easy. One of the first stretch big men of his day, played on that 82 team with Michael Jordan and James Worthy. It was a was a first round pick in the '84 draft. Enjoyed a solid career, right? Aaron Gordon was another name brought up. Now I think there's that's ultimate ceiling as far as like where he'd want to reach, as far as like being a championship level player. Chandler Parsons, I hit the Obi-Wan, like, that is a name that I have not heard of. Now, that is a name I've not heard of in a long time. I have not heard Chandler Parsons' name in a long time since he went and fleeced Dallas for that max contract and ended up not being, basically Cuban thought he was going to get an American Luka with him, but that didn't happen. Otto Porter Jr., okay, I can kind of see that one. Al-Farouq Aminu, hey, he had some time in New Orleans. And Jonas Jerebko and MPJ. I feel like MPJ is kind of getting thrown on a lot of these wings that are like 6'8" and above. Jonas Jerebko, solid role player. But yeah, like nothing about him screams star. Nothing about him screams even like anything more than a decent starter. Now, the only thing with this trade is that we would get some nice draft picks, right? We would get the Hornets first round pick in 2027. I'm not going to sit and act like I know who are the top players of that class versus like next year, but that kind of all depends on what happens this upcoming college season and who ends up staying for an extra year, or what other European prospect, international prospects, not all from Europe, but international prospects we don't know about yet. And we also would have the Heat's first round pick from that year, lottery protected. Now, given that the Heat are a team right now that post them trading Jimmy Butler to the Warriors, Bam, they don't know if they're gonna commit to building around Bam Adebayo, Tyler Herro. Oh, another Kentucky player. Shout out to Kentucky. They don't fully know what they're gonna do there. You know what I'm saying? Jaime Jaquez, You want people want to talk about Jordan Hawkins fell off after his rookie year. Jaime Jaquez, woof. Now, might be some other non-basketball reasons for why he fell off. So if you know, you know what I'm saying. But they drafted well this past year. Khalil Ware had a very good rookie year. You know what I'm saying? One of the better rookie bigs to come out of this past draft. But yeah, they're a team that just doesn't really know. They don't really know what they got going on. Spoelstra is a great coach, right? I would kill to have a coach like Eric Spoelstra. I still hope Willie can figure it out, but Spoelstra, his track record is proven, one of the best coaches in the NBA, one of the best basketball minds easily. But, just because you can turn guys that used to be hooping at LA Fitness into valuable role players, that does not mean you're going to win a championship. Championships are still won by stars. Now, someone who didn't need too many stars, President Dumars, because that Pistons team, nobody I named was like a star. They had their star moments, but no one was like a top guy at their position. Chauncey wasn't a top guy at his position. Rip Hamilton, Rasheed, Big Ben. I mean, I'd probably say Big Ben was, but defensively, right? But nobody was like a superstar. But yeah, you look at all these, you look at the last, let's just go the last 5 championships from 2019 and on. So, 2019, Kawhi, 2020, LeBron and AD, 2021, Giannis, 2022, 2022, who won? Steph Curry, Steph Curry. And Klay Thompson. 2023, Nikola Jokic. 2024, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. 2025, to be decided. Who knows, right? You need star players. I don't know if Tyler Herro and Bam are going to be enough to get you over the hump. Because even on that 2020 team, right, Jimmy was the number one guy. And unpopular opinion, but I feel like Jimmy Butler is an amazing number 2 that has moments of being number 1, but he's overachieved. But I know D Wade just talked about it recently. There was a lot of moments where he was like bro, shoot the ball. And I be feeling the same. I'm like, yo, I'm not even a Heat fan, but I'm like, why is he passing the ball? And he showed it in this past playoffs against the Rockets and against the Timberwolves. Like, bro, what are you doing? Like, they need you. They need you to be a bucket getter. They need you to go out there and score. This whole I'm gonna drive to the paint and pass. No, you playoff Jimmy. People were saying you were Jordan's illegitimate son. What are you doing? Score. So anyway, all that aside. So I say all that to say no one knows what is going to happen with the Heat. So overall, this trade, no. 2 thumbs down. But given, maybe the 2027 draft, by the time we get to that point, they're looking at it the same way as they're going to be looking at this draft upcoming and the 2026 draft, which is also very strong. No. Not with it. And, Miles, no. Tajane, no. You know what I'm saying? Right? So when you look at a player like Zion, right? Zion, when healthy, is a 25, 7, and 5 guy. You don't find players like that on a tree. You just don't. You know what I'm saying? Zion is like the gift that keeps giving with all these different writers, though. They love floating Zion into these trade rumors. And, it's starting to really grind my gears. But it's cool. It's all right. It makes things easier for me to talk about. But still, if we're going to be talking about trading Zion, it has to be for some top-level first-round picks and a superstar caliber player. Okay? Nothing less. Because a player like Zion does not grow on trees. The ceiling for him is still incredibly high. His potential is still incredibly high. And I believe that President Dumars feels the same, which is why he wanted to send a message to the rest of the league. So, yeah, of all trades, and, I feel like I'm going to get outdone. There's going to be a trade that's even worse than this one. But that trade, 2 thumbs down. With the Porzingis one, that's but I don't want us to give up Herb, right? CJ, maybe. That's one that I would be willing to listen to. That's definitely one I'd be willing to listen to. I didn't even really talk about Tobias's fit with us, just very briefly, right? Just given the health concerns of Zion, right? Doesn't hurt to have another player who you can slide as a 4 and a 3, but can also space the floor and play defense as a 3 and D, right? And a true 3 and D that if you were like, yo, I need somebody to go out there and get a bucket. I need somebody to go out there and put up some shots. He can do for you. He's played in the league for a long time. You know what I'm saying? He's going on, I think, like 14 years. I remember when Tobias Harris was one of doing like the diary feature in Slam. I don't know if they still do that, but Slam magazine were like the top high school prospects. Well, yeah. So I'm aging myself, but anyway, you know what I'm saying? Y'all know where I stand. Do not give up Zion. Do not. We haven't even gotten to see Zion at point yet, which I'll talk about next video. So yeah, don't give up Zion, but in Dumars we trust. Right, I talked about that before, but in honor of his birthday, I felt like giving it more of a review and a look at his legacy, look at his impact. But yeah, I'm excited to see what President Dumars has cooked up. I'm excited to see what he does. I don't believe it was a coincidence, right? He said he wasn't going to come back to a team, but this one, right? That's special right there. That's special, but I think it's it definitely the Louisiana connection. I think that that probably holds deep in his heart. That's a perfect full circle, perfect way for him to pay it forward for his foundation, for all the years in history, right? So here's to President Dumars building a winning culture in New Orleans, building a winning infrastructure on the Pelicans, and let's see where all this goes. Draft is on, the 25th. We got some time, man. We got some time. We got still a whole month ahead of us, pretty much. And it's going to be very interesting to see who we end up picking and what we do moving forth. You know what I'm saying? And when free agency hits as well. And then whatever other moves that we make in the offseason and just looking at things ahead. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for more. But that's going to be it. I really appreciate it. I kind of ranted on even more than usual. Had a lot more energy. So I figured, hey, this is the perfect medium to express it and get it off my chest. But, you know, I appreciate y'all sincerely for rocking with me on this journey so far. You know what I'm saying? The bar was set high before me, and I just want to keep the fire lit. I want to keep the fire going, and I want to keep providing y'all, you know, a great interactive experience to tune into for your Pelicans. So make sure to like, share, subscribe, all that. You can also, again, follow me on Instagram at DYLAN_Bruton, BRUTON 10. That is where I'm going to be posting like episode links. I'm going to post on my other page too, but that's the main one that I'm going to be doing like more professional stuff. You know what I'm saying? So tap in, show love. You know what I'm saying? DM me. Tell me that my takes are terrible, or tell me that they're great. I prefer the great, but hey, you know, sometimes you gotta hear the real raw reality. But again, much love so far, y'all. Appreciate it. Continue the comments, continue the dialogue. I definitely am going to be incorporating that into videos. So I really appreciate how interactive y'all been so far. You know what I'm saying? And let's see this Pelicans team get to the level of what the Pistons were in the early 2000s. That's a goal right there. If we can make 6 straight Western Conference Finals, win a championship or 2, hey, I won't have a bad thing to say about President Dumars. I already don't. One of my favorite players from the 80s and 90s era, the era of not plumbers, okay? I want to put that out there. I'm 26 going on 27, and I don't subscribe to that notion of calling them brothers who was bad, who was nice, who was tough, who could ball. You put them in today's league with the rules now, they go even crazier. All right, I sounded really old with that, but like I'm a youngin'. I'm a young dude with an old mind and an old soul, and I got faith in President Dumars. I had to watch a lot of old like Pistons footage because my mom was a huge Jordan fan, so I watched a lot of old Bad Boys Pistons footage. So the respect is very high, and I think him as a native Louisianan, he's going to do right by this franchise. So make sure this keeps going longer than it should be, but so hard to say goodbye. We're the boys to men. But yo, make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow me on the gram, follow Fan Arch as well. Pelicans Daily, more content on the way. Stay tuned, stay blessed, and